back on the Dauntless. And that's something I need to do. And it has to do with replacing rings on the pistons for this engine. And if you were following my last video about the Dauntless and my discussion with the parts guy, following that I spoke with a couple of my guys that are helping me through this, that are coaching me, and they gave me some pretty good suggestions, and I'm going to try and do that suggestion today. Now, I've never done this before, so I want to get these old rings off from one of these cylinders. I don't want to mess it up. Bend it. Okay, there's one. And there's another one. So let's go upstairs to the block and I'll show you what I'm going to do. Hello everybody, my name is Bill. This is the channel Rust to Resurrection. There's a lot going on in today's video. I have a lot to show and a lot to talk about, so I hope you guys stick around to the end to get the entire flavor of what it is that we're trying to do to this Dauntless V6 engine. If you have been here and you remember a couple, 3 videos back, I talked about my experience with the parts house and how kind of disappointed I was with the experience. And some of you have made some great comments. My networking group, who's helping me to restore or rebuild this engine, they had some great suggestions. We're going to talk about some of those suggestions today. But when I called the parts house, they listed rings. We're going to talk about rings and bore sizes a little bit today. When I called the parts house, they listed the rebuild kit, and the piston ring sizes were from standard to 50 or 60 over. I forget what it was. The question that I asked the tech guy was, do your piston rings, do your standard piston rings, are they equal to the factory bore size? And that's when things went south pretty quickly, because at that point he started asking me, well, what was the dimensions that your machine shop gave you? And I told him a couple times that this is a standard bore. It has not been milled, and we couldn't communicate. For some reason, we couldn't come together on him understanding what I was asking. Are your standard piston rings the size of the factory bore? In other words, are they a direct replacement? So I'm not oversizing these cylinders because this engine only had 40,000 miles on it. My buddies tell me that's like a brand new engine. And in fact, when I measured it, they came out to be factory spec plus a couple thousand. So they were all within factory specs. They were all in the plus or minus range. But the question I then asked is, hey, if I hone this thing, and I am going to hone, is that going to have an effect on the bore size? Is it going to hone so much material out that I should go 10 over? So, what's the right thing to do? Well, my guys told me to do this. And not just one guy. I actually had a couple of my my coaches tell me the same thing. They were telling me that I should put the ring inside the cylinder bores and free float them without the piston, and then measure the end gap in the rings using the bore size as it is right now before honing, and then go around and measure in a couple places top and bottom, just so you have a good sense of what the ring gap is. Then go and hone them, or hone the bores, and put the rings back in and see how much it's changed. My guys all said you'll hardly notice any difference at all, and I'm okay with that. I would prefer that, so that when I end up getting those measurements done, then I will know that these are standard ring sizes. I'll call the tech back and say, again, are your standard ring sizes for factory bore sizes? And if I can just get the answer to that, then I know what size rings I have to order, and that's where I am on this. So if you guys have any suggestions, again, don't be mean, just I'm learning all this stuff, always interested in other people's opinions. Now, when I started this, I went in and I measured all the bore sizes, and you can go back and see that video. And when I did measure them, I used snap gauge and OD mics. And this is actually what one of my coaches told me is to do. It's just, it takes a little bit of skill sets, but I've done this for 50 years, so I have a pretty good sense of how this is supposed to go. So when I did it, I recorded all those sizes so that I could go back and review those dimensions against the repair manual, the Jeep manual. It's actually the Kaiser manual for this rebuild, or for this Jeep, and they were pretty specific about the dimensions. The next thing I kind of want to go over or talk about is the honing. They call it a glaze breaker. It's just a cylinder hone, I guess. I guess everybody has a different name for it. One of the things about this, and I guess one of my beefs and bitches being, 71 years old and having been through this all my life, is that you used to be able to rely on companies. So brand was important, So for instance, in measuring devices, Brown and Sharp, these go back 50 years, this set. Brown and Sharp, Starrett, Mitutoyo, they were all brands that you could rely on. So if you bought a new Mitutoyo back 40 years ago, you knew that it was of quality. Same with Brown and Sharp and Starrett. If you bought this stuff 50 years ago, or 40 years ago, or even 30 years ago, you knew you were getting quality stuff. You could rely on brands like Craftsman, and if you're into woodworking, Delta, and there were so many brands that were high quality, and it didn't matter what you bought from them, you knew that you were going to get a good quality thing, or a good quality device, or a good quality machine. Today, it's all kind of weird, and I don't know how to think about it. Like, for instance, going back to this cylinder hone or glaze breaker. I watched several videos of these, asking the internet what is the best to buy. And I'll tell you what, guys, the amount of hate for these things were all over the place. It's like there's no brand that is the brand that you can rely on. I've had guys say that this brand that they were reviewing absolutely sucks. The hone broke down. Another guy said Yeah, I've got this off from Amazon. I paid 20 bucks for it, and it's perfect. It's beautiful. And these are supposedly all professional engine builders. So it's like, you know, you can't find brands anymore, apparently, that are just reliable, and just knowing the brand is going to get you the results that you're looking for. I don't know anymore. I guess I'm getting too old for this stuff. You know, everything's made in China. I don't know that that has to be bad, but everything's made in China. And I just, ranting here, I just feel bad for all these younger guys that are coming into mechanics and machining, and if you're even doing that anymore, because nothing is reliable anymore. There's no brands that you simply know it's the quality that you're looking for. I don't know. I guess you just have to know at this point. All right, enough of that. So, brand, Kaiser, Buick, V6, highly regarded. Even into the future, the 3800 V6, I had it in two of my cars. I had two Bonnevilles 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And those two Bonnevilles had this 3800, which was just an upgrade of the Buick V6, which this is. And it was a phenomenal engine. And Buick, not Buick, but GM let it go, I guess. But what hot rods those two cars were. I mean, both of them had superchargers on top. And they would just shit and get those cars. So these V6s are just really powerful little engines. And I'm happy or proud to be learning to rebuild one of these. Brand. Tell me what your thoughts are about brands, and can you rely on them anymore? Let's get started. I'm not going to show you me measuring all 6 cylinders for end gap, but I'll show you the first one. And one of the things I need to do is get whatever the coating was that they put in this thing after they cleaned it. Leastwise, everybody tells me they put in a coating. So I've got some mineral spirits, and then I'm going to finish it off with denatured alcohol. The denatured alcohol will actually clean the mineral spirits, and it flashes off pretty quickly. So we're not waiting for it to dry forever. I took one of the pistons and I cleaned it up. I got rid of all of the carbon deposits on the side so that it fits down in pretty easily. And then my guys told me to fit the rings in. Now, yeah, I'm learning, guys, so if I'm doing this incorrectly, just be kind, let me know. But and what they wanted me to do, and I've seen this done on the internet, is to use the piston to get it down so that it's square in the bore. And then the idea was to measure the gap, and it was a pretty significant gap, so I'm surprised. I'm surprised. Matter of fact, they're so different, the bottom one versus the top one. I may take this one and make it my standard and go to the bottom with this one as well. So let's try 43 and see if that's a thing. Yeah, bigger than that. Let's go to 63. Still loose at 63, so let's so 20, 60, let's go to 64. 64 drops in there. Let's go right up to all right, that is tight. It goes, but it is slightly tight. Okay, so there is a little bit of drag there. $66. Definitely tight or snug. Okay. 66 on all the way down through the cylinder. All right. All right, so that is cylinder number 5. So we're going to write 0.66 end gap on those rings. All right, I'm going to do the rest of them, get those dimensions written down, and then I will start honing those, and then we'll do this all over again after they're honed. So I'll bring you back when all the dimensions are done. These came out remarkably good. Now remember, we are not checking ring end gap according to the manual. What we're doing is comparing cylinder to cylinder, measuring that one datum point, which is that one ring, to look and see how close each cylinder is to the other, and then comparing that to the dimensions that I got when I measured it with the snap gauge and OD mics. So they were remarkable. The 66 became the standard, 66 thousandths became the standard for going around here. And there was, number one cylinder was 64 and 65 thousandths end gap, which is 1 and 2 thousandths tighter. So the number one cylinder is over here. The number one cylinder was the tightest. So, and then the number 4 cylinder was 66 at the top and 67 at the bottom. So anyway, using, again, one ring as a standard, going all the way around, it really does mirror the measurements that I got months ago when I first took this thing apart. So we're looking good. I actually went back and checked a couple cylinders, and they actually came out a little bit better the second time than they did the first time that I did it. I'm happy with this. I'm pleased with this. So we now know a starting point. We know where we are. We know where we exist. I'm going to start honing these cylinders. Same thing. I'll take you through just the one, and from there, rinse and repeat, and we'll get all the way through that. When I'm done honing them, when I'm done honing the first one, I'm going to go back in on that one and compare it to the snap gauge and the OD mic and the amount of ring or end gap that we may or may not have increased. If it all turns out within a couple thousandths, the warm and fuzzy will be there. I'll know that the hone doesn't take off a lot of material. And then my goal, my hope is that I can just order standard rings and not get too rattled or shook up by this. All right, let's go do that. We're going to hone cylinder number 2. They didn't want this one to get stolen. Good Lord. What the hell? That was interesting. I don't know how they vacuum wrapped that, but it was literally plastic was wrapped around everything. Now, again, I keep telling you, I ask friends, and I also watch some videos. Uncle Tony's Garage says when you do this, that you should back the spring off as far as it can go so you don't have a tremendous amount of pressure against the walls of the cylinder if all you're doing is just removing the glaze or just trying to put some cross hatches back in, which is what we've done. The other big debate is, should you use 180, 220, or 320 grit? And I couldn't get anything definitive out of absolutely anybody. The 320, I guess, is if you're using molly rings. Yeah, molly rings. So 320 is not typical. I guess the 180 and the 220. These are 220. And again, I can change them if I have to. It's unclear. If you guys have some thoughts about what grit you use, if you do this, leave a comment. Every day I learn, get smarter every day. All right, let's do the first cylinder hone. Then I'm going to go back and do the measurement. We need to lubricate the honing stones, and there seems to be as much debate or suggestions for what's the proper lubricant as there are people doing it. Now, wondering how to do it. I know how I do it down in my woodworking or my restoration shop, firearms restoration shop, but I've never done this before. I've been honest about that. I've never done this. I don't know what's the proper method. So I do a lot of research. I ask a lot of questions of my team and of the internet. And there are just dozens of ways to lubricate. So I've heard everywhere from WD-40 to light machine oil to ATF. Uncle Tony uses gasoline, and I'm not sure I'm ready to make that step or that leap just yet. That kind of gives me the willies, but he's done it successfully. So for this first one, for this test, I'm just going to use WD-40. I need to figure this out. I need to learn how to do this. The first one we're going to do with WD-40, and then we'll go from there and we'll see what other lubricants I can use. Maybe some light machine oil, I don't know, or some light engine oil, I don't know. But we're going to start with the WD-40 because I can keep adding it in with the spray nozzle and keep this thing lubricated as we go. How much is enough? Again, that's another debate. Everybody says you got to get the glazing off and you want to get some cross hatching in there. And don't really see a lot of cross-hatching in here right now. But all right, let's get started. Let's learn some things about honing cylinders. Okay, that'll work. That's going to go through a lot of WD-40 for sure. Okay. I do think I need to add a little bit of spring pressure to that because it seems to be a little too loose. And I was told that I needed to watch the edges of the hones because they will break down if they're not a good quality hone. My battery is running out. Oh, that is really starting to work good. Got a couple dark spots up in here. Yeah, just a dark spot around right up in this area here at the top. And there's a small dark spot down at the bottom. Most of that is all pretty crosshatch. There's a few vertical lines that go with the axis of the cylinder, which is probably the rings where they slid up and down. Let's do a little bit more. Hones look good. Boy, I see cross-hatching almost everywhere. This is not going to be a perfect cylinder, but I mean, this is not going to be perfect, but damn, I think this is going to be pretty good. Yeah, most of that gray spot is going away. When I was watching one of Uncle Tony's videos on cylinder honing, he made the statement that if you're just freshening up an engine, I don't remember which video it was there, he did say that if you're just freshening up an engine that's in good shape, that you'll almost never get all of the little gray spots out. And in his very casual way, he said, just don't worry about it. So I'm betting that we are 94, 95, 96% crosshatched. And again, this is an engine that met factory standards. Let's go ahead and put some gauges in this and see what we end up with. So we just did cylinder number 5, and I'm going to do a couple measurements and just compare that to the original that I got a couple 3 months ago. And we'll start that way. So according to this, we are 750 and 3/4. So 750, not quite 751. And when we look at this, okay, so if it's possible, oh, there it is over there, 750. Okay, so it was 752. Can I lose a thousandths? No, it was just probably a measuring error. Let's try the top. We used to have a joke back in the production shop. Well, we used to say, just keep measuring it till you get the answer you want. I may be doing a little bit of that here. Yeah, so we're at 751.5. And number 5 was 752. And that's, I mean, essentially, this is what it was. I don't understand why it's smaller, but let's do this the other direction. Any of you older guys out there working machine shops? Be a little bigger, around 755-ish. That's actually right up at the max of that. And yeah, 755, 754 was one of the dimensions, and that is right at the max of the tolerance, which I told you there were a couple that were at max. Okay, let's probably not going to stick with that one too much more. Let's put that ring in and see what that ring gap looks like. And if you remember, it was 66 thousandths. Okay. 66 thousandths. Yeah, it's just as snug as it was. All right, let's go down to the bottom. Okay, so we're still at 66 thousandths. So if that's any indication, I can probably hone just a little bit more out of here, get this cylinder wall cleaned up just a little bit more, and I'm going to do that. Yeah, that's still snug. So 66, the datum is still good. This cylinder is good, and one thing that I was told, that if you take your flashlight and go around, you should be able to see light if the rings are not sealing. And I don't see that. I think we got a good bore here, guys. I'm happy with this. All right. Yeah, I think I'm going to hone that just a little bit more. All right, I got to go buy some more WD-40 or some other lubricant because I'm almost out for this. And I got 5 more to do. Guys, I'll bring you back when I got all of them honed. Take you on tour, do some measurements, and figure out if we like what we got.
some friends. Why does such a thing make you uptight and tense? You're high-strung, babe. You're high-strung, babe. And a high-strung woman makes for a high-strung man. I go out at night for a drink or two. It seems somehow that bothers you. You're high-strung, babe. You're high-strung, babe. And a high-strung woman makes for a high-strung man.
Done. All 6 cylinders are done. All 6 have been honed. I'm going to take about an hour and go through and remeasure all of the cylinder bores and check it against my original dimensions. See how much it's changed, if at all. Going to put the datum ring in and see where I stand against my 66 thousandths. When that's done, I want to sit down with you and sort of share my conclusions, talk about some of the observations that I've made and where I think this engine or motor is going to go. Now also, if you've been following the restoration or rebuild of this Dauntless, you know that I keep putting up here, I keep putting a tally of expenses or costs that I have in this. At the very end of this video, I'm going to do the same thing. I'll put the total, the new total for the amount of money I've put into this engine. So stick around for that as well. So let's talk about this. The thing I have to remind myself is that this is a known engine. It came out of a Jeep, a CJ5 that I owned, and I bought it in '76, I think, and it was a 66, so it was 10 years old. Low mileage, had just over 40,000 miles, and it ran great. Why am I tearing it down? Well, a couple reasons. One, I want to just do this. Two, in my thinking, and that's all open for discussion yet, I'd like to put in a slightly hotter cam in this thing. I don't need to make this so it's undrivable. It's already a very powerful engine in that little Jeep, and the extra cam, if I do it, will be just a little bit more power. The engine ran great. It had no issues. It didn't burn oil. It didn't do any of those things. The problem I had, and partly why I'm rebuilding it, is first off, it was ugly. It was just ugly. Paint was gone. The dirt and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, and the other problem was is it sat for 50 years and it went through cycles of weather. So I was concerned that the block may have cracked. I just, you don't know these things. And it never sat in particularly nice conditions. It was always undercover, but it was still going through the weather cycles from extreme cold to 100 degrees in the buildings that it sat in. So it was just a no-brainer for me to take this thing apart and try to ensure that going back in, it was going to be a reliable engine. And like I said, besides that, I just wanted to do it. I wanted to learn how to build an engine. So knowing that it was a known engine, knowing that it ran well, when I pulled it out of the Jeep and put it in the basement, if you guys were following that, there was one piston that was stuck. And that was number one over here was stuck. It was all rusted in place. When I got the piston out, the rings were stuck. So there was rust or corrosion that was holding that ring in place. And I did a short video talking about soaking that in WD-40. Those rings finally let loose. I got them apart and the piston looks good. So I was also concerned that there might have been some damage to the cylinder bore. There wasn't. There was or is some discoloration, but you can still see a good clear bore and you can still see the cross hatching after I honed it all the way up and down. So number one was a concern. It's not a concern anymore. Having done all of the honing and then doing all of the measuring after the honing, I've just got nothing bad to say about this this engine. I mean, the numbers when I started this thing were pretty darn good. And when I went back and did the numbers again after honing, if it's possible, the numbers are even better. Their numbers are even tighter. So is it possible that the block, I don't know, shrunk? I don't know. Is it possible I just did a better job measuring them? That's possible as well. When you look at all of the bores, they all have similar markings. So the gray areas are all the same gray areas in all of the cylinders. So every cylinder, every piston ran like the one beside it. Yeah, I mean, I just think we've got a good standard engine. I mean, it's all to factory spec, which was important to me. So when I started looking at this and comparing it to the factory standard or factory tolerances, it gives the 3 inches 750 is the dimension, and it allows for a max taper of 5 thousandths and a max out of round of 3 thousandths. And we are under all of that. So the number one cylinder, which is the one I was worried about, has a max out of round of 1 thousandths, and it has 0 taper. I was just sort of amazed at that. And when you look at the 750 as nominal, this cylinder is 1/1000th oversize that number. So it runs between 3 inches 751. There is one at the bottom, whereas that 1/1000th taper is 3 inches 752. So this is basically a square cylinder. I can't fault that, and again, that was the one I was worried about. Number 3 has 1/1000th out of round, and it has a max 2/1000th taper, still way under the max of 5. This is not a completely square cylinder, but it's pretty damn close. Number 5, 1/1000th out of round, max taper of 1/1000th, and that's down at the bottom. And that is left to right, not top to bottom. Number 2 is 1/1000th out of round and 2/1000th taper. So number 4 is 2/1000th out of round, 2/1000th taper. And number 6 has 2/1000th out of round with 2/1000th taper. So all 6 of these cylinders are in spec, they're in tolerance. Are they perfect? Nope. No, I'm not sure that they came out of the factory perfect. I mean, we're not building a performance engine. We're simply refreshing an engine that is going to be in a show vehicle. So at the end of the day, it needs to run. And I'm pretty confident if I can do the rest of my work well, that this will be a known running engine. Now, I also did the rings. So I checked the ring gap after honing. And this was kind of both interesting and educational for me, because I was concerned that the honing was going to remove significant materials. And this is where I sort of got into that discussion with the parts guy, or the tech guy. And there was absolutely no material, or very little material. So when I looked at my tolerances, or when I looked at my measurements from before honing and after honing, there's just virtually no difference. Like I said, some of them got a little bit better as opposed to getting bigger. And I'm thinking, again, that that's just operator error. My gaps on the end gaps on the rings, they came out exactly the same. Even the one that was 1/1000th bigger was 1/1000th bigger, number 4, which is here. Even number 4, it was 67 when I measured it before honing, and it's 67 after honing. When I used the flashlight looking for any kind of light showing through the around the ring, there was none. So my conclusion is, I'm fuel oil guys here delivering fuel oil. Yeah, it's winter here, guys. My conclusion is, I've got a good engine. I've got a good block to start with, and I'm happy with that. When I went back, so we were talking about that bad ring. I'm kind of going backwards here, but number 1, the one that had the stuck rings, that was also the one that had no compression when I did the compression check. And again, that video is available for you to go back and see as well. So number 1 had no compression, or had low compression. And I'm sure now it's going to have compression. I'm happy. I think it's time to move on to the next step in all of this. What is he doing? You want to keep going, dude. Keep going. Keep going. There he goes. Winter in New England. Everything, every day with snow is a crapshoot. All right, so what are we going to do next? Well, now that I'm pretty confident about the size of the bore and knowing that I can buy a standard piston rings, I'm going to buy or order the rebuild kit for this engine, and it includes the rings and the bearings for the crank and all of that kind of stuff, which will be a video coming up because I do have to measure all of that. Those crank journals all look brand new, but I do need to check those and make sure. So the kit is coming next. I'm going to order that, but I am going to try and get the rest of this block cleaned up. I've got some brushes for the oil galleries and water galleries. I want to do a good cleaning. Once I got it all clean the way I would like to have it clean, then I'm going to start painting it, get it painted, get it preserved, and then we'll start putting the thing back together. So those videos are coming. Now, I promised you that I would give you the updated total on this. Didn't have to do an awful lot. I had to buy some WD-40 because I used up my other can getting this thing honed. Now, who would have known? I guess I've been living under a rock. Who would have known that WD-40 also sells silicone spray and white lithium? I did not know that. I bought some white lithium. I wish I had this the other day when I was working on that car seat for the Grand Prix. In that video, it's coming up. Getting that car seat working. So we had to buy a spray can of WD-40. WD-40 came to $11.99. That's going to go up here. I have to write it off against the cost of building this engine because I used up my home can. And then I had to buy the hone. And that was surprisingly more expensive than I thought. I paid $40 for this hone. But it seemed to do everything that everybody talked about. It held up. It didn't get rounded over like a lot of people that I watched cautioned against, these edges getting chipped up and round up. In fact, I crashed it into the journal bosses once, and it didn't even crack it or break it. So that turned out to be a pretty robust little hone. I'm not accustomed to giving shout outs to companies that I don't work with, but this was made by a company called Lisle, L-I-S-L-E, Lisle. Expensive, more than I thought, and it worked really well. So today we're adding $12 and $40 to that count. Happy, happy, happy. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, and I certainly hope you did, please give it a thumbs up. I'm trying to grow this channel, and every action from you guys to me helps the algorithm say that it's a channel worth watching. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Love to grow this thing. And guys, I love you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being so patient on what is today a very long video. I'll see you in a video in the future. Bye, guys.